Welcome to Tulane parents. My name is Penny Wyatt, and I am the Director of Parent Programs and External Relations for the Division of Student Affairs. We're glad that you're joining our webinar today. I'm going to just share a couple of things while we're waiting for everybody to log in. So I know that many of you may have joined us yesterday for our first webinar of our summer series. So I'll let you know that webinars are an ongoing program of the Parent Programs Office, but we do a special set of them in the summer, just like we have a special set of series of e-newsletters for parents of incoming brand new students to especially help you in the high school to college, summer transition phase. It's a really critical phase in your student's life and in the life of your family as they are getting ready to come to university. And of course, as you all are very well aware, it's more complicated this summer as we're facing the pandemic and we're having to make all kinds of adjustments and precautions and plans to help us in this time. So I know that the information that you have been so anxiously awaiting is everything about move-in and how all that will happen and testing and those kinds of things. But I want to be really clear that that's not the topic of our webinar today. So that webinar is happening, the one about move-in and how that portion of the whole phase of housing will go is happening on Friday. So please make sure that you pay attention to that one or that you look for the link to that later. So I'm also going to let you know that if you tuned in yesterday, and I tell you what, you want to use the little, we'll just skip that part. So we have a lot of people logged in. So we've got a little bit less than an hour here to spend with you. And as you can see, we have several different panelists. So we want to make sure we have time for all of them to speak to you and leave some time for your questions. We also received your advanced questions, and so we're definitely incorporating some of that content into their remarks today, and then we'll leave some time for additional questions. So the other thing I want to say about this webinar as opposed to the one yesterday, if you participated in that one, is that this one will have some more text that will show you just so that you can kind of track some of the important messages that the different panelists are giving. It's a little bit more procedural information or very resource rich, and we want to make sure that you can kind of follow along and see that. Additionally, I want you to know you don't have to rush to write everything down if you think things are important. If you see something that is really critical that you want to know, have written down for a reference in the next few days, then go ahead and do that. But I don't want you to feel like you have to capture all of that, because we're going to post a PDF of these slides on the Parent Programs website, and the links that are included will be live, so you can click through to those. So that'll save you some time today so that you can really just kind of sit and absorb the information and take that all in. So you'll have ways to access this, both a video recording and the PDF of the slides. So I am going to get ready to show you those slides. Give me just a second. Okay, so here's where we're starting. So again, this topic today is academic success and career planning support. So there's academic planning, there's success support, there's career support. So it's all of those kinds of things. And at Tulane, we really have things set up so that there's this continuum from their entry into the university and how they approach their academics, from choosing their classes as they did this month through the CAST program, all along through all kinds of different support for them in that arena, through narrowing down their academic interests into a field of study and how that relates to how they want to actualize that in their career planning. So think of this as that continuum, and we'll show you how that all comes together. So a few other instructions for today's webinar, just so that you're oriented to how we'll proceed. So this is in webinar format, not meeting. So your microphones are muted and the chat function is disabled in this webinar format. You will be able to use the Q&A feature that's on the control panel of your screen, but we ask you to please hold your questions until I cue you to start submitting those. We've tried very hard to anticipate the kind of questions that you might ask. We've done this presentation of this particular panel for years for parents, so we try to refine it each time and we kind of know what to expect, but you may have some additional questions, but it'll help us if you're absorbing all the information and listening carefully, and wait until we reach that point for the Q&A. And again, keep your questions to this topic and look to those other webinars and to the parent e-newsletters and other sources for answers to other kinds of topics. So the link to the video recording will be up in about 3 business days on our parent program's website. And I'll send you a follow-up email when that link is ready. And it'll also include contact information for all the departments that these panelists represent, so that if you want to follow up on something specifically, you can do that. So again, we've got more videos, more webinars coming for you. Tomorrow we will have a broader look at accessibility at Tulane. That will be discussed today in the academic sense. But there are accessibility issues and accommodations that students might need that intersect with different parts of their lives. So a bit broader view of that tomorrow. And then again on Friday, the one about fall 2020 move-in. Additional webinars will be happening in July. They'll all be listed on the parent program's website, and I will refer to those in the e-newsletters coming up July 1 and July 15th. So our panelists today, here's a look at everybody there. You can see their names and titles, and they're on their screen as well. And so we're going to start with academic advising, and Heather Cooper is going to introduce everything you'd want to know about academic advising. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Penny. I am going to tell you as much as I can in the 5-minute window I have, but I am excited to kind of see your students' faces in the fall. In academic advising at Tulane, our mission is to work with each individual student and really personalize the academic experience and really work to maximize the students' ability to kind of get to where they want to go, and of course prod them along a little bit if they need a little extra support. Making decisions and being in the driver's seat of their educational pursuits. Next slide, please. Penny, next slide. Oh, is it stopped? There we go. One of the, most people have some sort of idea about what advising services do on a higher ed campus. Of course, we do help with course selection. We work with academic planning. We monitor students' progress toward graduation, which I know is a big interest for parents. We help at Tulane in particular. We have a lot of conversations about majors and minors and interdisciplinary fields of study, and we help students kind of understand what the landscape of their academic choices are. We also, of course, can help students move between different majors, and which could involve moving between different schools. But we do have a centralized advising department here at Tulane and under Newcomb Tulane College's undergraduate arm of the university, so that students do have that fluidity between different schools and different majors, and they have kind of access to all of it rather than applying each time. That takes a little bit of skill on the side of the advisor to help students navigate what can be very complex curriculum choices. And so that's why this is on the list. Understanding the university and the college policies and procedures is key, of course, to what I do on a day-to-day basis, but it's really important that the students understand those things so that they can again get in that driver's seat and make choices according to what policies and procedures need to get done in order to get through whatever piece of their academic experience they're working on. We help with supporting students through understanding transfer credit processes and policies, and getting assistance during the approval process for those classes. And of course, we also are kind of one of the first stops that a student might want to make if they're thinking about withdrawal or leave of absence for whatever number of reasons that may come up. Next slide. All of the advisors, the way we're structured is around the different schools. So we have a science team of advisors, we have a liberal arts team, we have a pre-professional team, we have an exploratory team. That said, we're all cross-trained. So we work with advisees no matter kind of what our specialty might be. It just helps us kind of focus when we have specialty areas. The specialized advising that I'm talking about on this slide really has to do with we have pre-professional advising, which is the type of advising that students may need to get support in creating the best applications possible for pre-health careers and applications, and post-grad school opportunities, and pre-law opportunities as well. So again, an advisee, a student might come to me first. We'll talk about all of the pieces that I know generally about these areas. And then when a student is ready and really has specific questions as it pertains to their particular path, then they might go to a pre-professional advisor to start setting up that relationship so that they can kind of understand what the application process is and the resources available to them within that particular interest. Exploratory advising, we do have an exploratory team of advisors, and a lot of my students who just come in the door and say, I'm an exploratory advisor, will likely work with one of those advisors in the fall. But all of us work with exploratory students. Many of my students walk in with one major and leave with another, and that is a very normal process in my line of work. We help, of course, have lots and lots of conversations about major options and exploration. We've just finished up registration, or we're finishing up this week, registering all of our incoming freshmen. Most of your students have likely met or have an appointment to meet with an advisor this month to make sure that all of their interests are kind of on the table for fall semester so that they can get a strong footing in a number of different directions as they kind of plan their next 7 semesters after fall. So we do a lot of conversations around major exploration, and we also have a lot of, you'll notice in our titles, it's academic and career advisor. So we also have a career services team, which of course our panelists will speak to today, but the career ideation piece is one that is really important to me in my line of work, and just really talking to students like, oh, you're interested in becoming a doctor, great, tell me more about that experience, tell me what draws you to that. Tell me what challenges you might see in that. So those are conversations we have all of the time. And sometimes majors and careers link up directly, like in a more pre-med setting, and sometimes they're very different. So I think that we have those conversations and we start the conversation in our office. Next slide, please. So just referencing, giving a little bit of scope, and again, I know I have a real limited amount of time, but most of your advisees, your students coming in, have already kind of behind the scenes worked with an advisor to get registered for their fall, or been in contact with an advisor, or will be in contact with an advisor this week to get registered for the fall. The advisors that the students may work with this summer might be different than August. Each August, we reevaluate our caseloads, we look at our staffing, and we look at our student interest, and then we kind of give out the students accordingly to our staff of upward toward 30 advisors if we're fully staffed. And when that happens, each August, a student will receive an email that says, hello, I'm your advisor, I've looked over your schedule, this is what you need to know for the year, welcome back. And so each August, the students, especially my freshmen, will need to be checking their Tulane email. That's tip number 1 that I didn't write on the slide, but tip number 1 is students should be checking their email. But they will get presented and assigned an advisor in August. During the summer, if they have questions, they can turn to their advisor that they met with for registration, or just email advising@tulane.edu, which will be on the last slide. Their advisor might change from time to time, but always throughout their 4 years, from freshman year through graduation, they will have an advisor assigned to them from our office. Our advisors are the generalists on campus. We're often the first stop to many of the different offices that you are going to hear from today in this panel, but we're also often the first stop before a student gets ready to declare a major, go off and declare that major, and then they get a faculty advisor for their major. So there's different advisors on campus, and the more your student wants to do, the more advisors they will likely have. So students with 2 majors and 2 minors might have to go to multiple people on campus to really nail down the information they need. But again, academic advising is kind of the first stop, and we're always kind of the jumping off point for my students, just to come in and say, wait, I had these 3 things I want to do, how do I do it? And then I hopefully give the student a list of things to do. You need to go see this person, you need to go see this person. This process actually can be started in my office. Here's the form, let's fill it out. All of those things are kind of the types of things we do. So again, advisors may change, but my office and your connection to this office will not change. Advisors are not allowed to share academic specifics about students' records without a FERPA form on file in our office. This is a lot different than high school. The student is now in the driver's seat and really owns their academic record in college. 9 times out of 10, I do not want to be the person that's delivering academic information about your student's progress. And I hope that those conversations are happening between the student and the parent. But if the situation demands it, or the student and parent and advisor are working together on something, just know that we may have to kind of bring out this form and make sure that the student has signed off on it before we can kind of include real specific information. That being said, I will talk policy and procedures all day to any of you. And I think usually just understanding the process and the policy will help you understand what choices you and your family need to make around your student situation. But again, I just want to emphasize the student is in the driver's seat. And I know some of you are hesitant to let go, and some of you have already pushed them out the door. And I just want you to know that, like, we're here to kind of help with that process. And we're going to constantly be reiterating with the student, like, hey, here's your information. What are you going to do with it? And how are you going to take your next steps? We're going to be supportive, but we're also going to help them. Couple things just to remember. You can just remind your students that they need to order all AP and IB scores to be sent to Tulane for all the years that they may have taken them. Their immunization requests that are coming from the Student Health Center through the health portal need to be kind of recognized usually around October 1st. Some sort of registration hold will get put on all students without these, and that can get in the way of spring registration. So the sooner the better. That's definitely something you want to send your students off with, is the right forms, and/or getting that done. Encouraging students to monitor their email regularly throughout the summer is really important. And then just back to the student being in the driver's seat, have them meet with their advisor. The best thing I can tell you to do is encourage your student to meet with an advisor 2 to 3 times a semester, so we can kind of teach them the resources that are at their disposal from our office and help them with the choices they may need to make about their schedule currently or in the future. We can go to the next slide, which I believe is just all of the information you need. Just generally, if you're having a lot of questions that are advising related, go ahead and email advising@tulane.edu, and those will get forwarded to the appropriate advisor. So often giving your student's name will be useful here, but you can also go to our website. That's it for me. Thank you so much, and good luck. Great summer.
Okay, so if you were late joining us, I'll just reiterate that we will send you an email in a few days with a link to the recording and a PDF of these slides. So I'm going to turn things over now to Patrick Randolph from the Goldman Center for Student Accessibility.
Thank you, Penny. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. As Penny mentioned, my name is Pat Randolph. I'm director for the Goldman Center. And the Goldman Center here at Tulane is essentially our version of disability services. I'm going to try and keep our content pretty brief today with the understanding that we have a webinar to more comprehensively address kind of the support services we offer, but also to answer any specific questions you might have. We also realize that the nature of most students we work with, that it can be highly confidential. So we're happy to connect with you offline as well to have direct one-on-one conversations. Just to go over some of the points though that are referenced here. Obviously, our goal is to provide direct student support in a way that really ensures and promotes access for every member of our community. That extends, obviously the focus of today's presentation is more in line with academics, but that does extend into all co-curricular programming as well. One of the ways that we kind of extend out to try and support our community from an accessibility standpoint is exactly what's referenced in the second bullet point, which is along the lines of understanding that there are no two students that learn exactly the same way. Kimberly will tell you more information about the way Success works to support students and tutoring with Christie and everything too. But for us, we really firmly believe that great minds do think differently. And we try to get professors to understand that there's a lot that they can do to embrace current national best practices, including universal design for learning tenets, into their day-to-day instruction methods to just create more organically accessible environments for students so that they ultimately will rely less on the Goldman Center for support and will be able to just actively engage from day one in all of their academic and non-academic programming. Next slide, please, Penny. So what we do, as I mentioned, reasonable accommodations is the way we primarily support students, and the majority of that work is in the academic arena. What I mean by that is if you have a student that receives accommodations, most students receive support in the area of assessments or testing. Probably the most commonly requested accommodations we get here at the Goldman Center are for extended time or having a less distracting environment to test in. We also provide support in the classroom as well and implement reasonable accommodations there. And we're very intentional with the way we do that, and it might not always align with the way your student was supported in the K through 12 arena, but everything we do, much like Heather mentioned about the student taking control over their academic experience, we want them to be accommodated in as autonomous a fashion as possible. We don't want them relying on others to do things that they hopefully can do on their own with the implementation of some assistive technology resources or other accommodations. Outside of the academic arena, obviously there are students that have need for specific housing provisions. That could be, requiring a certain space on campus, like a single room. It might mean that they need access to certain bathroom amenities so they can tend to their self-care needs for medical conditions and whatnot. A lot of times those housing accommodations work in complement with dining accommodations. We do consider requests for dining accommodations, whether it be a modification of the dining plan or a waiver of the dining plan altogether if it is necessitated by a qualifying disability that's protected under the ADA. I will say, however, that we have a fantastic relationship both with our Tulane specific dining services team and the food service vendor that the university contracts with, Sodexo, and they do a really outstanding job of accommodating individual student needs and even preferences. So even if your student doesn't have a qualifying disability, but you do have concerns about lifestyle choices, things of that nature, there are a lot of resources to support your student to make sure they're getting not just the academic experience they're hoping for, but the nutritional sustenance they need to continue to perform and be well, and for you all to feel comfortable while they're so far away from home. Next slide, Penny. So who we serve, I think most obviously when we think about accommodations, we think about students that are exiting the K-12 arena, entering post-secondary that have a known history of accommodations. One thing that I think is really critical for those parents on the webinar today that know they have a student with approved accommodations is in the post-secondary environment, there's not the same burden on the school to go out and locate these students. Your student does have to self-identify and register with our office. We don't just, there's not just a portal where high schools upload information directly to us, and so we continue accommodating students without them having to take any action on their own. They will need to connect with us to start that process. I would also just say, if you have a student who knows that they receive accommodations, regardless of why they're receiving them, typically first year college is not the time to sever that relationship with accommodations. We sometimes have students that come to us and say, yeah, I'm just looking to make a fresh start. I want to be like every other student. Based on the decade plus experience I have in this role, this is not the time to make that adjustment, though we can work on a plan for minimizing accommodations as your student progresses through their curriculum. For any of you that maybe have kind of tuned out to this point, some other areas I would ask you to keep in mind when you think about the Goldman Center is we don't just support students that have a known history of accommodations. You may have a student that, whether you previously sought accommodations in their high school experience or have never considered it because they've always done well enough, for lack of a better phrase. If you know your student has reported struggles historically with course specific content like math or reading comprehension or something that has just kind of not necessarily stalled their progress, but has definitely made things difficult for them in their high school experience, the post-secondary environment is inherently less structured than the structure they get at home in a high school environment and with all the supports you have in place in your own home environment. So there are students that come in with struggles that actually rise to a higher level and could actually qualify as a disability that would require accommodation support. So I want to make sure everyone knows you don't have to have that history of previously receiving accommodations to connect with our office and have a conversation about how we can support your student. Lastly, although this is a small subset of the student population we serve, it is a noteworthy subset, and that is the students that come to campus that have never had any academic challenges or any known needs. Sometimes the adjustment to post-secondary alone can create some difficulties, particularly from a mental health standpoint. There are also some mental health diagnoses that tend to manifest in late adolescence, early adulthood, and the timing is really poor, particularly when students are expected to start assuming more and more responsibility for their own actions, their own academics. So in short, you don't know what you don't know, and the same applies for your student. And so if they run into new needs for support or new challenges, academic or otherwise, and don't really know quite how to go about navigating those, we encourage you to have them connect with us, and we can definitely either assist them directly or guide them to one of our colleagues here at the university who can support them. Next slide, please, Penny. Last but not least is our contact information. Again, we'll have the webinar tomorrow. We're also available for private consultation. And I would just encourage you, if you're even considering it, reach out early and often. We understand that student needs change over time. So everything we do is a work in progress, and we're happy to assist you and or your student at any time. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Christie Kahil.
Hi, I'm Christie and I run the Academic Learning and Tutoring Center. So we are all about academic support for students. I guess the one thing that I really want to stress about what we do here at Tulane that I think is different from what students are used to in high school is that tutoring and supplemental instruction and writing coaching, etc., they are not remedial activities here. This is something that we recommend for all students. Not only do we work with students to overcome content deficits and so forth that they might have had coming out of high school, but we also help them to learn better, learn faster, learn more effectively, to create context around their learning, so they understand why they're taking these subjects and how it fits into the broader scope of their learning, particularly if they're in, say, a pre-med or pre-law track. We can also work with them to build skills around learning. Kimberly is going to talk a little bit more about the peer success leaders, which are kind of academic skills coaches for students, which is another service that we offer. But particularly through the supplemental instruction experience, we also promote a collaborative learning process and a social learning process, which can be extremely important for students in their first year or so of high school, and I will say probably for this semester as well, just because things will be a little bit different this semester. The other thing we do is we cultivate student leadership and scholarship. So we have all of our tutoring. One, it's free. Two, it's also peer-led, and it is very much a student-driven organization. They take strong leadership roles in the center, so we are always looking for excellent students that are interested in building academic leadership and their leadership skills, and we explicitly train students in leadership and team leadership. So next slide. So we do tutoring. So it's individual tutoring, it's by appointment. Everything this semester is still going to be virtual. We switched to virtual back in March. We are still virtual over the summer, and we will continue to be virtual this fall. But normally we have both virtual and in person, 30 and 45-minute sessions. We cover most of the STEM and gateway courses, things like symbolic logic, foreign language, those kinds of things. So if a student needs a tutor and we don't have expertise on our staff, we will also try and help them find it. Sometimes we have someone on our staff that just never thought to offer that as a subject. Also, I will say that our individual tutoring, it can fill up. If you are looking for, say, Gen Chem tutoring, you know, the week of midterms, you probably need to have made that appointment about 2 weeks in advance if you want to get one, or need to have a really good relationship with your tutor. So we recommend being proactive and think about your schedule. So if you want to come in for a review with a tutor before a major test or exam, just be aware that you probably need to schedule that well in advance. Also, coming in, we recommend that students come in early and often, that they develop relationships with their tutors. We find that students who, I don't know, for some reason 5 seems to be the magic number. So students who attend at least 5 sessions, whether it be SI or tutoring during a semester, seem to do better over the course of the semester. I will mention just private tutoring too, because that question always comes up. We do not have lists of like private tutors for students. However, if they are looking for a paid tutor, a private tutor, they can try the department. A lot of times the department will have them. There are lots of tutor matching services. We have one on our website that you can, that students can check out. There's kind of like a startup that was started by Tulane students. I can't remember the name, it's something cute and catchy, but I'm pretty sure they advertise on Facebook. And also just word of mouth, ask the RA, etc., and let people know that they're looking for a private tutor, and they should be able to find one. A lot of our tutors also tutor privately on the side, so that could be another option. All right, next slide. Supplemental instruction. So the SI program, we have a really strong SI program here. Supplemental instruction is been around for 25, 30 years. It's an international program. It's still peer-led. So we have SI leaders that are upperclassmen. They've taken a class and done really well on it. So now they go back, they attend the class alongside the students, and they hold 2 to 3 review sessions or office hours during the week for students. In those office hours, they will go over what was they will go over what happened in class. They will reinforce the content, they'll practice problems, and they can also help students apply that knowledge in new ways. It's a very, unlike a lecture style class, the SI sessions tend to be much more about social engagement and collaborative learning. So again, we've done our own research here at Tulane. Students that start early, we really recommend that you start, SI starts the first week, so students do much better if they start within the first 3 weeks, and they need to attend regularly. It should be a regular part of the study cycle for students. And again, regular attendance. Not only do we find that it helps students do better in the class, but it can also help them do better in subsequent classes because they're learning deeply and not just kind of the surface learning for the test that happens a lot of times. So the last major service we offer is writing instructions. So that's on the next slide. So we have writing coaching. So we cover, so obviously English 1010, as well as a lot of the other course-based writing courses. So these are also individual appointment-based sessions. Students sign up for them exactly like they do a regular tutoring appointment. We have both graduate and undergraduate coaches, and we serve both graduate and undergraduate students. And they can work with students from kind of the beginning to the end. So we really, we recommend the students come in about 3 times on a major paper. That they come in and do kind of a brainstorming, outlining kind of session with a writing coach, and then they come back after they have a first draft, and then they come back before they turn in their final paper for kind of a final polish. We also work a lot with the library and the research librarians in the library to help students to find their primary sources, and then once the librarian has helped them find those sources, we can help them to integrate them into the paper. In addition to just academic writing, we can also work with grant writing. So there's a lot of grants available to students at Tulane. So as they're writing some of the NTC grants, etc., they can certainly come in and get some help with that. Things like purpose statements for applications. If they're trying to publish something, journal publication or something, we'll also work with them on presentations. So if they have classroom presentations, or if they're doing like conference presentations and papers, we can help them with that. We also support international students or ESL students if they need help with just the formal English grammar help. So let's see, the last slide is just our content information. Contact information. So we have all kinds of resources available on our website, so do check out our website. We are also in the process of building out a more robust resource section, but there's some good writing resources and things there for students. If you need to contact us, you can contact us at altc@tulane.edu. And I hope to see your students in our office either as clients or hopefully at some point as a tutor or writing coach.
Hey, thank you so much. So we will turn to Kimberly to talk about success coaching.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tulane. Glad that y'all are all here. So I am going to talk about success coaching today and a couple of things that our office does. So your incoming student is assigned a success coach who actually reached out this morning. So there's an email in their inbox if they haven't looked yet to schedule a meeting with their coach. We encourage doing that over the summer just to kind of talk through some challenges, to talk about excitements, to ask questions, get connected to other resources. Our coaches meet one-on-one with all the students on a regular basis. And we, as it says on here, engage with coaching at any point in an undergraduate experience, but we do encourage starting over the summer. Coaches, on the next slide, Penny, I'll tell you what we do a little bit. So we facilitate that transition from high school to college. Learning's going to look different. Your learning style may have changed recently. We can talk through that. We develop goals, as well as we serve as a really great place to connect with other resources. We have a great relationship with Patrick's office, with Christie, with Heather, with Eddie. So we really enjoy sending your students that way for very particular needs. Within coaching, students can talk about any of the things that you see listed here: motivation, time management, organization, study skills, goal setting, transitional topics in general. Sometimes it can be the challenge of figuring out when to do your laundry in between classes versus, roommate conflict sometimes. So, any interpersonal skills that are coming up for them as they really take on a lot more personal responsibility. That's what their success coach is here to talk through. And on the next slide. So coaching, and you've heard this from Christie now too, we do see a lot of success after about 5 meetings. That's why we try to say meeting regularly. That doesn't mean that your student can't engage at the midpoint if they're feeling like they need some extra support in some way, shape, or form, and we need to create a plan and be really proactive around some slipping grades or some unique barriers or challenges that come up. That's totally okay. But, once they engage, we really encourage them to come back again and start off on that next, that right foot in the next semester as well. Our data shows within our university a really positive impact on GPA. And the students, so I've touched on this a little bit, the students have the freedom to talk about whatever they drive their own agenda in our meetings. So they can bring up whatever topics are coming up for them. And along with all the offices that you see here, we also connect with mental health or victim support. If there's anything that comes up for your student in that way, we're happy to serve as a liaison between that office as well. So a couple of other things our office offers that your student is going to hear from us. They hear from us a lot over the summer, and they're going to hear from us about every 3 weeks when school starts. In the beginning, it's a little bit more just knowing that they might not have pressed the I'm in button at the very bottom of their email just yet. So we kind of let them know we're still here for them if they want to engage. But we also have peer success leaders who work with students. It's really great to have a peer to talk to, especially if it's more of like a one-off kind of conversation where you're curious about some resources or getting involved. Happy you can come talk to your success coach about that, but you might feel more comfortable starting off with a peer. And our peers are trained in very similar ways as the professional coaches. So having access to that, I'll show you all of our website and whatnot, so you can see how to access that. And we also have a series of academic workshops that we put on with Christie's group. And we have anything from note-taking and an event in the beginning of the year called Planner Jam, when everyone gets all their syllabi and is able to really plan out what their week's going to look like and know weeks and weeks in advance when their tests are. And if they have 3 tests in 1 week, they're going to know that so far in advance that they'll be prepared. So our series of academic workshops are pushed out to them also really regularly with their success coach email, checking in on them. And I mentioned this yesterday too, if any of you were here, but we'll also be pushing out resources based off of what's going on in the semester. For example, sometimes about 3 weeks into the semester, there might be some homesickness going on campus, and we, we're happy to talk through that. And we send, we have a blog post written by a peer that we refresh, have a new peer write each year about dealing with that and how to kind of talk to your friends about it and your family and your loved ones. So we push that out during that time. And it's just one of those things that we kind of try to monitor the trends of what's going on throughout the semester and give support in whatever way that looks like at the time. And then on the next slide, you can see how you contact us. Again, so exciting. Thank you so much to all of, hopefully it's all of your students that are on this call that have already said that they're in. We had so many people already scheduled with us, and we, the coaches were so excited. to see our schedule start filling up with incoming freshmen. So we're really looking forward to working with your students.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, next we will hear from Eddie Cruz to talk about the Newcomb-Tulane College Career Services.
Thank you, Penny. Hi, everyone. So at Newcomb-Tulane Career Services, we are able to serve our students in a lot of ways in comparison to my colleagues on this panel. We do provide one-on-one services. We also have peer mentors that can meet with our students during a drop-in service. We are available to all Tulane students, but on a later slide, I'll show you some other resources that are available to them depending on their school and college that they are in. One of the things too that they'll have access to through our department is Handshake. Handshake is an online career management system where we're going to want them to get comfortable with that system. One of the recommendations that I have is that they activate their account within the first few weeks on campus so that they can ensure they're receiving communications from our team moving forward. This system also is where it houses all of the jobs and internships. It's where we also post our workshops, our events that are upcoming. So they're going to want to become familiar with this resource. The other item on this list is our career development course, CRDV 1090. This is geared towards freshmen. We also have a section geared towards upper class students as well, so juniors and seniors. But really what this course is focused on is helping students start that planning process early in their time at Tulane. That would be another strategy or tip that I would recommend, is that students are engaging with us sooner rather than later. I wouldn't wait till they're junior or senior for them to step into the Career Center for the first time. As Heather mentioned, they have access to their academic advisors and career advisors, and we'll have some of those entry-level conversations, and we want to continue that. So I would urge them to schedule appointments with our staff as well early on in their time at Tulane. Next slide, please. Okay. So here, I just want to share, again, similar, we really believe that students will lead the planning process when it comes to their career. Our staff is here to support them through that, to guide them and provide them with resources and help them process the information, so that making sure that they're making the best decision for themselves. And we want to make sure that each of their paths is taken into consideration. The end goal is that they're going to be pursuing a unique career path, something that matters to them. And so that's something that we can work with them on. Again, the earlier they come in, the better that will be, the easier it would be to work with them. And so that's something that I just want to reiterate. We also urge students, again, I keep saying this, to start thinking about their career as early as possible at Tulane, and scheduling the appointment. And just keep in mind, we do have drop-in services. Drop-in, there is no appointment necessary or needed. They would be able to, if it's virtually, come in through utilizing a Zoom link, or if it's in person in the fall or spring, they could just drop by the center. Most likely that service will not be provided in person in the fall, so it would begin again in the spring semester, but we will offer it virtually. And then I just wanted to share, so depending on your students' school or college that they're in, there are other centers across campus that provide support. And so you could see the list of the Tulane School of Architecture has their own career services center or individual that helps those students. The Career Management Center at the Freeman School of Business, School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine also have teams that help their students with career. But that all being said, our team is also available to meet with all students. And our primary target is also the liberal arts and science and engineering students as well. So that's where we come in and support that group as well. Next slide. So this is just our contact information. One of the things I just wanted to, again, reiterate, top 3 things to walk away with. Make sure you have your student activate their Handshake account in the fall semester, urge them to come in and meet with our team, schedule an appointment with their career advisor, taking advantage of drop-in services. And then the last piece is urging them to participate and engage with our career events and programs that we'll be holding throughout the semester. We will also be offering 2 virtual career fairs in the fall semester. And typically we have 3 to 4 career fairs held throughout the year, as well as other networking and career events that we partner with other departments across campus to host. So thank you.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. So we're Our panelists have provided a lot of information. I hope that that's answered a lot of the questions that you may have had. We only have a few more minutes, and some people have already jumped the gun and they've submitted questions. So we're going to try to select out some of the ones that we feel will be of the most general use to everyone. And we will still review all the questions afterwards, all the ones that we don't get a chance to answer here in the live webinar. And we'll send some content that might answer those when we send the follow-up email. So if you'll be patient about that, we'll get some more information to you. Plus, once you see the email and the slides, you would be able to reach out to the department that could answer your questions. So we have a couple here to begin with, and so I'll pose these to particular folks. So one question was that came from a parent who said her son has to take a biology class that has only an online learning mode, and he's nervous about that. And she asks which of these departments would help him with this, Goldman or tutoring, but my thought is that it's really the Success Center. Would that be correct, Kimberly? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I think it could be a partnership between all of us. I do think that if there's not an obvious accommodation to be made, that coming here to coaching first would be a great option, and partnering with tutoring to go early and often to start scheduling immediately. And if it's a class that I'm thinking a general freshman class, probably has supplemental instruction. You can find that on their website. All of it will be listed out, who their SI leader is, where, and like how they can get in contact with them. So get with their coach, start talking about strategies early, and being proactive about what their time is going to look like in dedicating time to that class.
I think parents, and panelists, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I try to explain this to students and to parents to kind of understand that is that, remember that the Goldman Center is for specific accommodations that are needed for accessibility. The Tutoring Center is about content mastery and skill development, like writing. And the Success Center is really more about sort of those meta skills that help a student manage everything, like planning and organizing, and especially organizing their time, or kind of figuring out how to prioritize and juggle things. And those skills could apply to so many different courses and their whole life, really. We wish we all had Kimberly as our success coach. So I hope that maybe gives you a quick breakdown of how to differentiate between those. So another question is about supplemental instruction, and you just mentioned this. Is there a list of courses that have supplemental instruction? So Christie, is that already available, or will it be up on the website closer to when classes start? Tell us a little bit about that.
So yes, all of that will be on the website. No, it's still the spring semester information there, although most of those courses are pretty standard for us for supplemental instruction, so you can certainly go look and see what courses we generally cover. But yeah, they'll be up probably about 2 weeks before classes start. There's always changes in the course catalog kind of late in the summer, so we don't generally post until we're sure we have everything accurate.
That makes a lot of sense. I also have heard from students and professors that oftentimes professors will also put it in the syllabus if there is a supplemental instruction offering for their course, so that they also kind of cue the students to know that that's a resource offered for that class. Do you find that that's true?
Oh yeah. So the supplemental instruction will be in touch with all of the students in that class during the first week of class. So this semester, usually they're in class, like giving a presentation. This semester will be a little different depending on whether the class is online or whether it's hybrid or what's going on with that. And they will also be, we usually have like a banner up on Canvas and things like that. I will usually send out an email from the ALTC to all of the students that have a supplemental instructor to let them know. So they get plenty of communication that they have one available.
Okay, So another question was also for Christie, can students hire an individual tutor on a regular basis? So I'm not sure if the questioner is quite clear about the difference between utilizing a tutor from your center that's free or the hiring process of a private tutor. So let's take a stab at that.
So for our center, yes, we will do regularly scheduled appointments. We don't generally allow the student to schedule those just because we've had issues with that in the past, with ending up with kind of like zombie appointments on our calendar. But as soon as they have scheduled an appointment with a tutor and has kind of started that relationship, then the tutor can schedule a regularly scheduled appointment for them. They can also do back-to-back appointments. We have 30 and 45-minute appointments. For the 30-minute appointments, they can do a back-to-back appointment if they feel like they need a little bit more time. And again, you know, they can work out a lot of various accommodations with the tutor.
Okay, so this is for Kimberly. If a student has a success coach and they just don't make a connection, can they switch to someone else? If the coach reaches out and the student doesn't want to follow through on success coaching, you know, what would happen in that case, in either of those cases?
Sure. If the student wants to switch success coaches, they email success@tulane.edu. And I'm realizing we just switched over our website. I don't think that went over in our transition. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that so the students are aware. And if they decide to opt out, there is an opt-out part. They can unsubscribe, if you will, from our emails. And they can also respond with opt-out. It gives them that option.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see. Another question has been, this is very specific, but I hope that, as Heather said, 99% of the students have registered or, you know, participated in their CAS session. But someone said their son missed all the CAS sessions, but did have his advisor registration call. How would they go back and pick up the things that they missed, that were the online modules and the other components of CAS that were not just the, you know, the course registration conversation call? Heather.
Yeah, that part of CAST is overseen by admissions. So I think if they really, the modules, so there's many parts of CAST, as many of you have been trying to figure out. So there's the online modules. Those should still be available to students no matter what. That has a lot of important lead up information. And then there's the virtual events. At this point, the virtual events that were originally planned from the beginning of June are over, but I believe they will likely be identifying folks who have not actually attended those and likely have some sort of makeup version. So if that information comes out from admissions, I would highly recommend that the students participate in that. That being said, our registration appointments and then some regular contact with an advisor either in the summer or in the fall, in terms of the advising piece and the registration piece, you can just contact us directly. But yeah, I definitely think that the CAST event, if they do have a makeup version, would be really useful for all students. Just another piece of the orientation process. There will be real orientation or more in-depth orientation in the fall, but I think it's a good place for them to get another round of information.
Okay, so we are getting close to the end of our time. So there are a couple of questions I think are really very important, and I want to make sure we answer these because I think they have really broad applicability for all of you parents. So first off, there's a question, you know, how do the students learn about this? Is this going to be offered to the students too? How will they learn about all these wonderful resources? So I want to just kind of reassure you that we're providing this information for parents in this format, this one place and time, for all of you who are, you know, probably new to Tulane, as a way to provide you with that foundation and information about services and resources at Tulane. And we would, in other years when we're not having a pandemic, parents would have had the opportunity to come with their students to campus for CAS sessions that were on campus in person. So since that all had to go online, we are providing those sort of elements of things we would communicate to parents in person through these webinars. So your students are going to be with us all the time. And so they will learn this information in various different ways. And it's a lot of information to take in. And so we communicate that in very different ways through different media and over again. So they may get an email this summer. They may have seen it in a module that they did as part of the CAS program, but those are not the only times they're going to hear about all these different resources. The peer mentors in their TIDES classes will also introduce them to these various things. You may have some students who feel like, oh, I've heard this over and over again. And then you may have somebody else who's just not, they're paying attention to other things. And it takes a few times for them to hear the message before they actually kind of latch on to that. So I will say that when I send those e-newsletters and I say, encourage your student to XYZ, that we do feel like while we don't want you to manage their lives for them, we do feel like some extra encouragement or a little nudge from mom or dad can be very helpful. So the fact that you've heard about all these things also means that if they are expressing concerns or they are challenged as they are going through their first year, especially, you can say, I remember on that really helpful webinar, there were these awfully nice people who told me about the things that exist right there on campus for you. Have you thought about going to XYZ? So that's how you as a parent can help your student, just reminding them of resources. I think the main thing that we would say is don't jump to fix things for them. We don't want you to call to set up an appointment for your student. We want them to learn how to do that and take advantage of all the resources that they have, and especially there's online resources they can make their appointment. They can go online to schedule the appointment at 3 a.m. if they're awake then, but they need to schedule their appointment during the resource person's office hours. But that's how that's helpful to you. And so some of these different departments have social media that students can follow to hear about things. They'll hear about them in weekly e-newsletters that they'll get from Tulane College. They'll also get reminders, especially at key times in the semester when things become really salient and they need to be reminded of some of these resources in the Navigator e-newsletters that start this summer. So your students should be reading those on the 1st and the 15th of the month. Those continue their whole first year at Tulane. So there's a lot of different ways that they will learn about this, but keep in mind that they are facing a lot of new things at once. So it takes a while for them to master kind of knowing all of these different resources and feeling really confident and competent in knowing all of those things, but it'll get there. But if you hear that they're kind of missing something, hopefully you'll remember some of these things, and between the two of you, you can kind of, recall those things. There's so many helpful people on campus they can go to say, I have this question. I remember there was this place I could go to. What's the name of that place? So, there's always stuff on the website, and the students are really better at navigating the website than a lot of the rest of us. I will tell you that there is a list of all of these different things at parents.tulane.edu. So if you forget these things, that's your go-to place. You don't have to navigate through the whole Tulane website. Go there first. Go there first and look. It's parents.tulane.edu/info, INFO. So the other thing that I would like to leave you with is that one parent said, what if I have concerns about COVID? So that's not necessarily the topic of this particular webinar, but I just want all of you to know, we'll mention this many times throughout the parent e-newsletters and other opportunities that we'll have with you. But one of the things that we have is what we call our concerns report, and it's online. And you can just go to tulane.edu/concerns. And there's an online form that'll pop up that you can use to alert us to something. And so we don't want you to use that if it's an extreme emergency. You should call the TUPD office for those. But if you have a concern about your student and you feel like this is beyond just sort of typical transition issues, I think somebody needs to reach out to them, but I'm not even sure who that would be. You can use that form, and it's a very multi-purpose form, so kind of you can go through that. There are different check boxes, so you can kind of identify what your concern is, the category of the concern. There's also a box that you can just check other, and then there's a text box where you can describe what's going on. You can do that anonymously, but our staff can be so much more helpful if you will leave your contact information in case they need to follow up with you to get more details. But those are read by one of our staffs that just focuses in on those things and then triages from there. And so if our staff member who receives the report gets it and says, oh, this is something for Christie Kahil, I'm going to forward this to her, and somebody on her staff will reach out. So there's that kind of situation that occurs. So that can be helpful in cases where you just feel like your student needs some more support and they're not getting it, and one of these offices might be helpful. Or it may be one of the other departments that we'll talk about in one of our July webinars that are related more to wellness or campus health, the health center or our counseling center. So know that we do want your student to be learning to manage all of these things and learning about the resources. And this is a big part of their growth and development, and especially their growth into adulthood, is to learn how to identify resources and access those and manage those. But there may be times that there's just too many things going on at once and they need some help over a hurdle. And whereas you may have been the person doing that for them in their life up to now, we want you to turn them back to us and use these resources. So that's why we want to educate parents about all these helpful, wonderful resources, so that you know that there's just this great environment here on campus to assist students, whether they send an email, they log onto the website, they do something virtually, they set up a Zoom meeting with their advisor, or they make an appointment and walk in to see them. So I hope that helps reassure you that while we are not providing this same webinar to students, it's because we have a different purpose in mind for educating you. And we'll be doing that all along the way in various different mechanisms to help students acquire this understanding of all the help that's here. So I hope that is helpful. We've gone over time, so I hope that you're still hanging in there with us and you've found this helpful. If you want to take a moment to type in a last question or a comment about the webinar, then you can do that right now. We'll be here for just a little bit longer, a few more seconds. But I want to offer that you're always welcome to send feedback to my office to parents@tulane.edu. You have your very own website or your very own email to send comments and suggestions or questions. So just remember, it's parents, plural, @tulane.edu. So the feedback that other parents years ago provided to us has helped us refine what we do, and it may be the very thing that created something that you find useful or helpful. So we value your feedback and definitely encourage you to offer that. So we'd like to hear if you thought it was helpful, but if you can identify something that you think could use some improvement, then let us know. So I know that there were a lot of questions we didn't get to, but again, if you came in late, all of this will be recorded and posted later. Please give us a few days to get all that ready, but we'll send you an email to all the registrants when it is the video's ready, and you'll have the slides, a PDF of the slides, so that you can link through to things, and we'll address some of those questions we didn't get to today. But I would ask you to sign up for those other webinars that are later this week, especially if you have a deeper interest in what Patrick mentioned about accommodations and for accessibility, then please join us tomorrow. And then remember, the big one about move-in is on Friday. And then there are several more planned for July. The links have not yet been added, but they will be soon. So please, please, please read your Parents as Partners e-newsletters that I send you because there'll be more information coming about those. So I think we will end now. I would just like to say thank you to all of our panelists. Does any panelist have any last word that they want to offer, or do you feel like I just want to give you that opportunity if there's anything else. So then everybody wave goodbye, and thank you, parents. We'll see you again at a future webinar. Thanks so much.
Bye.